This time we'll take a look at views and different display modes. Let's start from going to Shapes tab and creating such circle for our scene. Now we'll add Extrude modifier. And it's gonna be our substrate. Start cap is unnecessary here. Now let's center it. And increase size a bit. Now we'll place some box here. The first conspicuous thing is the shadow visible here and general object shading. You can see even ambient occlusion here. This view mode overloads graphics cards because of generating these effects. Basically it's useless during work on animation. It just unnecessarily overloads the graphics card. It's best to switch it off. This mode is useful especially when working on objects for games to have fast preview on how it will look in game. Eventually if you'd use Quicksilver Renderer it could be useful too. Or in situation when you really need to know how shadows look. For example when animation is focused on shadows shapes. But in other cases it's better to save graphics card power to keep viewport working smooth. Quicksilver Renderer isn't used too often so this won't force you to use this view mode too. Here you can switch view mode to shade. And now PC is using less processing power. Such view is enough to work on animation. If you'll look at other viewport windows you'll find that there are other modes. Here's wireframe mode. We can switch to that mode here too. Now let's switch back to shade mode. You can also switch between these modes by pressing F3 button. I won't talk about all these modes, you can simply test it yourself. I will discuss only the most important modes that are available under shortcuts. These are very commonly used, especially during modeling. The first shortcut is F3, which I mentioned before, and the second shortcut is F4. Maybe it's not so visible right now, but thanks to this you can see model's mesh. Poor visibility is due to the fact that the mesh color is similar to the model color. If I'll change the object color, then color of its mesh will change either. This all is better visible when some material is added to models. I'll do it now so you can see. Here I chose this simpler material editor mode. And now I simply add some default materials. Now you can clearly notice dark blue line of mesh. And when clicking F4 you can see when you switch this mode on and off. Now selecting a color here affects the color of the object's mesh. You can also do this all from the menu. Just click here and choose edged faces. And that's how you do it here. Other modes are rather useless, but you can check them if you're curious. Let's close it for now. Here's another button, and this one's for switching between different views. For now I've got perspective here, but you can see other view modes here like orthographic, top, bottom, front, etc. As you can see, there are shortcuts for this. We can switch fast between these views. For example, I hit L, and here's left view. T gives us top view. P is perspective. There's also front view, which is F. But let's go back to the perspective view. There is also an orthographic view. This view is also used by views such as front, left or top. These views simply have a camera that is aligned with the X axis. So, for example, if I rotate the camera in the front view, it automatically switches to orthographic view. It's because front view itself is an orthographic view. Here you can see such a grid. It can be turned off by G shortcut. Generally you can find all shortcuts here. And here at this plus button you can see this G shortcut, which turns grid on and off. This shortcut obviously works for the currently active view. Let's turn shaded mode here for now. It is worth noting what's characteristic for the orthographic view. You can see that in orthographic view there is no perspective effect. Thanks to this, when we are, for example, in front view, we've got all edges of our box perfectly matched. Let's try to rotate front view similar to the perspective below. You can see that edges are still matched in orthographic view while in perspective they aren't. Orthographic view properties makes it very useful during modeling. Let's get back to front again. This grid is also useful sometimes, but I mostly turn it off. You can play with these views to get used to them. You can also find camera and light views here. Camera view is rather obvious, and light view is a view from light sources. We can see exactly what's the light source position and look at the whole scene from its place. Okay. It's enough for now about it. We'll talk about camera and light views later. Here, at the bottom, there are more options. Show safe frames is used for rendering. We'll talk about all this later too. In here there is more options too, but we won't talk much about them. The point of our interest will be configure viewports now. Layout. And here we can see different modes. The first one is actually redundant on this list because we can turn it on with the shortcut Alt+W. For example, I'll click Alt+W now and our selected view is zoomed. Let's get back to Layout tab now. So if 4 views is definitely too much for us, we can use these layout modes to choose the one that will make our work comfortable. Different layouts are more or less comfy depending on situation during work. During modeling, I usually prefer standard layout with 4 windows. Animation is the type of work when I use less windows. These options to switch between views are also hidden in the panel. They can be docked for faster access. Let's click right mouse button here to open the list of all hidden panels. There's a lot of them, as you can see. 3 of them are active, of course. Here we have viewport layout tabs. Let's click it. It appeared here in the corner this time. I'll make this window a bit bigger. We've got different layouts here, so we can switch between them fast. If we want, we can dock this panel in any place that will suit us. Anyway, this panel isn't used too often, so probably you will keep it hidden. Well, I think that's all. See you in next lesson.